Today's Tips to Jour mailbag question comes to us from Oregon. Robert, why do cedar top and spruce top guitars sound different? Charles in Oregon. Well, a simple answer, Charles, is because the properties of the two woods are different. And two of the most important properties of those two species of wood are density and stiffness. Now, you can go into a lot more detail on this subject. In fact, Trevor Gore in Australia, a friend of mine, has actually written a couple of books that go into great detail on this. And I've been hosting him in my shop here for the last week. We've done a series of master classes, and he just happens to be right here off camera. So I'm going to invite him in to give you a little more technical definition. Now, he can talk about this until your eyes glaze over. So I'm going to try and get him to keep it simple for you. Here we go.
Like Robbie said, two of the most important properties of wood are stiffness and density. Here I've got piece of spruce, and its density is pretty easy to measure. You just measure the thickness, the length and the width, find the volume of the wood divided by its mass, you just weigh it, and the volume divided by the mass is the density. The stiffness is a bit harder to measure, and we'll go to the bench and look at that in a bit more detail in a minute. But two of the things that are immediately obvious that when you have two pieces of wood is that if you tap one of these, and I'll try and do this now, you get a tone out of that. Now, these two pieces of wood are the exact same size and thickness, but when I tap them you get two distinctly different tones, and that's because the stiffness and the density are completely different. So if you build these into a guitar using the same thickness, you're going to get two completely different sounding guitars. Alternatively, if you adjust the thickness of the cedar to compensate for its lack of stiffness, you'll get guitars that sound remarkably similar. Let's go to the bench and explore that in a bit more detail. Okay, we're at the bench now, and we're going to measure the frequency of vibration of this piece of wood. And from that frequency of vibration we can work out Young's modulus, which tells us all about the stiffness of the piece of wood, and from that we can figure out the thickness that we need to reduce it to for the right sort of sound from the guitar we want to make. Okay, I'm by my computer now. I'm going to tap this piece of wood, and we should see some frequency numbers come up which correspond to the resonant frequency of this mode of vibration. Here we go. And we're getting a pretty steady 63 Hertz, 63.9 Hertz out of this. And from that number we put it into the formulas in my book, and we can work out the Young's modulus of the material, and from there figure out the thickness to leave it. And now I'm going to repeat that process with exactly the same size piece of spruce. The previous piece of wood was cedar. This is exactly the same size, but this one's spruce. That's reading a pretty steady 80.07 Hertz. It's vibrating at a much higher frequency, which indicates that it's a much stiffer piece of wood. So from there we can figure out that we need to make this thinner if we're going to have to get the same type of sound out of a guitar as we get out of the cedar. If we leave the cedar thicker to match the vibrational frequency of the spruce, we can get a cedar guitar which sounds a lot like a spruce guitar, but it will actually sound a little bit brighter than a spruce guitar, and that's because generally cedar has lower damping.
So Charles in Oregon, thank you for your question. And I told you, Trevor can talk very much in detail about this. If you want to take it deeper so you can learn how to target thickness, a particular species of wood or a top to get a particular sound, then I highly recommend his books. He's got 2 books on guitar design and tuning and things like that. Just go out and Google him, Trevor Gore book, and it pops up. So, happy building.